What is DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid, commonly known as DNA, is a self-replicating material that is the carrier of genetic information in nearly all living organisms. DNA is made up of chemical blocks called nucleotides. These blocks are made of 3 parts: phosphate, sugar, and one of the 4 types of nitrogen bases. The 4 types of nitrogen bases found in nucleotides are adenine A, guanine G, cytosine C, and thymine T. A pairs up with T and C pairs up with G to form a structure called a double helix. Discovery of DNA. In 1866, Gregor Mendel published his work on hereditary traits in peas and how certain traits can be passed from parent to offspring. In 1869, Friedrich Miescher discovers an acid substance in a cell's nuclei, which is now known as DNA. Many years later, in 1911, Thomas Hunt Morgan demonstrates that genes are located along chromosomes. Then, in 1929, Phoebus Levene discovers deoxyribose sugar in nucleic acids, and later demonstrates that DNA is composed of a deoxyribose sugar, a phosphate group, and a base. 21 years later, base pairs are discovered, and Watson and Grech describe DNA structure as a double helix. Then discoveries of individual genes for diseases like Huntington disease and cystic fibrosis were made. Genetically engineered food and animal clothing was also discovered at this time. More recently, in 2003, the first completion of the human genome sequence was released. Mutations. A gene mutation is a permanent alteration in the DNA sequence that makes up a gene. Gene mutation can be classified into 2 different types: hereditary and acquired. Hereditary mutations are inherited from a parent and are present throughout a person's life in virtually every cell in the body. They are passed on through gametes during meiosis. If the parent's DNA has a mutation, their offspring will have the mutation in each of his or her cells. An example would be skin color, that is passed on from both parent to offspring through pigments. Acquired mutations are mutations that occur at any time of a person's life, if their DNA fails to copy itself correctly during mitosis. External factors such as UV radiation from the sun can alter mitosis by causing cell damage, thus prompting the cells to mutate. This leads to commonly known diseases such as skin cancer or melanoma. Acquired mutations in somatic cells cannot be passed on to the next generation, and not the role of mutation in evolution. Mutations are the fundamentals of evolution because it is the only way that new alleles and new regulatory regions are created. Advantageous mutations have allowed life to develop and diversify from primitive cells into the multitude of species we have on the earth today. If DNA replicated perfectly every time without errors, the only life forms existing now would be the same as those that existed 3 billion years ago: single-celled organisms. Mutations therefore are critical to the intent. Role of mutation in evolution. Mutations are the fundamentals of evolution because it is the only way that new alleles and new regulatory regions are created. Advantageous mutations have allowed life to develop and diversify from primitive cells into the multitude of species we have on the earth today. If DNA replicated perfectly every time without errors, the only life forms existing now would be the same as those that existed 3 billion years ago. Single-celled organisms. Mutations therefore are critical. The red hair trait. Every single human trait is the result of some genetic mutation somewhere down the line. Red hair is a recessive trait that occurs only in 1 to 2% of the world's population. It appears most commonly in people with 2 copies of a recessive allele on chromosome 16. This produces MC16 protein. Red hair is associated with fair skin and freckles, caused by low concentrations of eumelanin throughout the body caused by the MC16 mutation. Red hair is commonly associated with non-tanning skin, which gives scientists a hint as to where the genes originated from. Lighter skin pigmentation is more commonly found in Northern European countries, which means the gene most likely originated in Northern Europe. Some scientists concluded that red hair was not a result of positive selection, but due to negative selection. For example, in Africa, the higher levels of sun would be dangerous to someone with the MC16 gene and non-tanning skin. We could justify that red hair originally came about through genetic drift, a random mutation that developed due to the well-suited climate that allowed the first people with red hair to survive and breed so as to spread the gene. Achondroplasia. Achondroplasia is a form of short-limb dwarfism due to a lack of cartilage converted into bone. Adults with achondroplasia have an average height of 124 to 131 centimeters. Characteristics include short arms, legs, hands, and feet. A protein called fibroblast growth factor, FGF, stimulates and controls how cartilage grows. It helps determine both the length and shape of bones. When FGR3 is not normal, the fibroblast growth factor cannot work in the way it usually does. This results in achondroplasia. Achondroplasia affects 1 in every 15,000 babies. More than 80% of the time, these babies have parents who are average height. How achondroplasia is inherited. Achondroplasia can be inherited as an autosomal dominant trait, although it often results from de novo mutations. De novo mutations are alterations in one gene that is present in one family member for the first time as a result of genetic drift. This means that the disease is almost impossible to trace if both parents are unaffected. It also can't be prevented because it could become present in anyone at any time. But if the parents have the disease, then the offspring have a greater chance of inheriting it. This Punnett square shows that having one affected parent means that the offspring will have a 50% chance of inheriting the disease. This pedigree shows that the gene can appear from 2 unaffected parents, and if one partner has the gene, then there is a more than 50% chance that their offspring will inherit the disease too. Thank you for watching.